Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Good Gut Live. We are always excited to be here on a Friday live. And if you're watching this live, welcome and thank you for watching. As you know, you can comment down below with whatever questions you have, and we will answer them live. We have a topic today. As always, we have a topic. We will answer questions as well. Our topic today is just one that, if you've been following us for a while, it comes up pretty often because we get DMs or we just see it or it's just timely. There's always someone talking about this topic. In this case, it's like feeling bloated after eating greens, and here's what to do about it. But really, greens could be broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, anything green. There's also all-out attack, I feel like, for the last 4 years on like greens in general, right? Like kale was once like people were wearing shirts that said kale, and now it's like kale has fallen in a way, but not really in the, I think, public eye and perception. We're seeing this just attack on
It's interesting
plants.
because, you get these superfoods that everyone's like, eat this. And it's almost like celebrities. You're like, worship this celebrity. And then you find out they're a real person. And then you're like, boycott the celebrity, cancel the celebrity. So, of course, when you're eating and over consuming things, you're eating cups and cups of whatever because you are saying it's a superfood and you're taking powders of it and just downing it in smoothies and soups and everything. Anything will be out of balance like that. So I'm really seeing greens could be a part of that because if we know one thing about the gut, we know it likes diversity. So if you're sticking to those greens and you're forgetting your orange and red and blue and white and yellow colored plants.
So you're starting by saying people overdid it. Is that what you're saying?
I think, we just have and I don't blame the consumers at all. I think we're having these influencers and these, I would hope, well-meaning people out there who are saying and recommending these things to people like, this is the new superfood. Put this in everything you have and put it in an enema and put it in every hole that you have. And then, of course, I think that's going to offset the balance of anything, in my opinion.
Put it in every hole you have. Interesting. Yeah.
And
No,
that's going to take you out of balance when it comes to anything. And greens tend to come up, I think, a lot because people will go on these autoimmune diets and they'll be like, I was instructed to eat 4 pounds of greens a day. And I was drinking them in smoothies and I was consuming them everywhere. And then I felt great and then I felt awful. So it's so important to understand the context of why that is, take a step back. If you have an autoimmune disease to begin with, which hey, I have an autoimmune condition, your gut took very strong hits to get there and for your immune system to even get involved with your food to begin with. Because really, for the most part, outside of your IgA immune system that's in your mucous membranes, that's going to send moderate signals of distress if there's something you're eating that it's intolerant to. Your wider immune system, your IgG, your IgE, IgM to a certain degree, they have nothing to do with your food. They should never even encounter your food. So if you're finding your immune system's reacting to food, your gut needs help. And throwing pounds of anything at it is seldom the answer, from what I'm finding.
Right.
Unless you're doing other things behind the scenes.
Yes. Okay. Well, and that's great. Like it's almost like an overcorrection, right? I think in a way of like, I think we can all agree, or if you don't agree, let us know. But we can all agree that we think we're in the US, by the way, depending where you're watching this, where we're streaming, but we're in the US, and the US is severely lacking in fiber and plants. So there seemed to be this plant-based movement and possibly an overcorrection. And what I want to get to, we're going to get into context. We're going to get into what to do if you're bloated with this, but we're going to, as always, add context and some facts and really discuss this a little bit, because there was this massive plant-based movement where it was these plants are great and eat more plants. And what Dahlia is kind of mentioning is a little bit of an overcorrection where then people started juicing kale and spinach and even celery juice was like a craze not that long ago, maybe, and still is for some. And it can work. But for others, there's important context where you went from a standard American diet or even some other type of diet, and then just going fully plant-based or adding all these plants and specifically very high sulfur plants. Yeah, so it's very interesting. And so some of that context is going, and if you've been following us for a while, you've heard us say this before, where it's going, we're so quick to blame the plant. We're so quick to say kale's bad, oats are bad. And we hear this. I'm sure you guys have seen this on TikTok and Instagram, or if you don't pay attention to social media, awesome, you're awesome. But wherever you're probably hearing this somewhere, where now we're hearing oxalates are bad, and
Phytates.
phytates and all these things. I would say before we get there, it's important to understand, and what is not as sexy or fun or sensational is to look at what's been happening in your family, whether that's immediate family or past generations. What medications have you been on, whether knowing or unknowing, right? When you're a kid, I don't remember all the medications I was on as a kid. I do remember some, but I was on a lot, and realizing, I remember as a baby, I had bronchitis, so I was in the NICU and I was pumped full of antibiotics and so much more. And it's like, what did that do, or what different path did that send me on? Other medications, laxatives, Miralax, right? NSAID, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. So we can go all through this list, but this list and what we'll continue to add is more important to go through. And first, if you want to call it blame, I don't know if we can call it, I'm doing air quotes,
Follow.
follow
Mhm.
before you follow the route of food is bad, and this, especially plant food's bad. This route, what I'm listing, what we're going to go through, is more important to follow and dissect and look at, as opposed to following someone that's saying all oxalates are bad, going on an oxalate-free diet. All what nightshade foods are bad, go on a nightshade-free
Yeah.
diet. Those are red flags where you're not following this other path that's healthier and more effective, and you're so quick to follow the kind of crazier, more sensational path.
And I think there's validity to it because I do have people who legitimately say, I react poorly to oxalates. They give me joint pain. I have insomnia when I eat them. I have GI symptoms. So then it is asking those deeper questions of why am I not tolerating the oxalates? Why am I not tolerating the histamines? Why am I not tolerating the FODMAPs or whatever it is? So following that back will usually lead you to the root that will help you address it. To give context, and I know we've spoken on this before because we keep saying the word oxalate. Um,
Yeah.
so, to give context, it's important to even understand what is an oxalate. And it is just basically a chemical compound that is in foods. So, especially certain plant foods, but also some animal products are higher in oxalates and
Mm.
they can be somewhat carbohydrate binding. Normally, when we consume oxalates, we have specific bacteria, oxalobacter, to break them down. We also have calcium, or we should have calcium in our diet to bind the oxalates that don't get broken down or completely broken down by the oxalobacter. They bind to the oxalates, and then the calcium escorts the extra oxalate out through the gut.
Mhm.
So then the oxalates are a non issue. We have bacteria and microbes in place to help us deal with them. And then secondarily, we have other nutrients to kind of collaborate and cohabitate with the oxalates to facilitate them out if they're in excess. What happens when somebody's not tolerating
Mhm.
certain chemical compounds or certain compounds in food is usually there's an imbalance in the gut. So, what we're often seeing is oxalobacter is severely decreased. This often happens in the presence of fungal or yeast overgrowth. So, usually somewhere along the way, whether it's because somebody had an antibiotic that wiped out their good bacteria and yeast kind of overtook, maybe they've been exposed to mold or mycotoxins, they have other things that have caused yeast overgrowth or yeast overabundance, steroid use, it has diminished oxalobacter, yeast is kind of reigning, and so it's not getting broken down anymore. So then we're relying on calcium to bind the oxalates and take them out through the gut. Maybe somebody has a low calcium diet as well. So when you're missing those two specific things, then you have all of these very large molecules of oxalate just kind of hanging around. they're not getting broken down, and your body has to excrete the excess. So it tries to push them out through the kidneys. And that's where then people get oxalate stones. Calcium oxalate stones are some of the most common kidney stones that are out there. So that's where people say it irritates my bladder. Maybe the oxalates start to settle in their joints because they probably have leaky gut. They get brain fog. They get irritability when they're eating the oxalates. They have GI symptoms when they're eating the oxalates. So that's certainly a reason to kind of suspect them, but also it's so important to really understand that process and say, what helps me break down oxalates? What am I missing either in my diet or in my gut? Why am I missing them? How can I correct that? Versus, let me just cut out all the oxalates.
Versus, should we show a clip?
Sure.
Let's see. I was looking at
Because
this, not that let's see here.
that's a solution a lot of people are proposing here. So if you were to go
There's
on
tons of clips.
YouTube Shorts,
I don't think there was a big deal of lipedema 100 years ago. It's a fairly modern problem. The modern diet is so much higher in oxalate than ever before, so consistent, so year round. It's every day now. It used to be that diets were seasonal, and they're not anymore. This is a toxicity problem. This is not a sensitivity or an allergy. It's not like gluten. And with toxins, dose is the issue. And this is the greatest example of citizen science. People started coming to me saying their lipedema improved on a low oxalate diet.
Vegetarian life. Interesting. So a low oxalate diet, is that so in a society where we don't eat enough plants, where we're eating hyper processed food and we're, really just what are we doing to our animals? What are we feeding our animals and the sugar and there's stuff like we can agree with where yeah, we used to eat seasonally and we used to eat more in tune with our environments, if some will call it nature, right? And that's fine. And now we don't. So I totally agree with that. But is it, again, we're going down a path of like wanting to demonize certain aspects of food as opposed to the other more glaring problems, right? And I would say like the low hanging fruit of the fact of, I mean, just some of the things we're mentioning of the medications we give to kids and the high amount of antibiotics we're using and past generations, right? And understanding what's going on there and how all of that is now contributing to where we have people and maybe, and I would even say, yeah, a large amount of people who are now having issues. Like Dahlia just mentioned, that whole flow of processing oxalates in a healthy way, many people are now having issues. And we're seeing that across the board with other things than oxalates, right? Like histamines and lectins and
so
several
I
things.
get it. Like just cutting them out seems like a good solution, right? Over let me heal my gut or
Mhm.
let me try to figure out how to add more calcium to my diet. It feels so much easier and controllable is what
Yeah.
I've definitely seen over the years for people to say, let me just cut, 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 cut. Because then if I cut everything quote unquote bad out, I'm left with nothing but pure nutrients. And that's where we have carnitarians or, people saying, let me just cut out all these hard things, make everything as easily digested as possible. My life's problems will be solved, which we know is seldom the case. That's almost like saying, I never want to feel sore after I work out. So first I'm going to cut out weightlifting, then I'm going to cut out cardio, then I'm going to cut out stretching, then I'm going to cut out
Never feel
movement in
sore.
general. I'll never feel sore. But will you feel good? Will you have longevity that way? So it's asking, am I cutting out short-term discomfort for long-term gains? I really think that that's often what we're seeing in this case, whether it's oxalates. So hopefully now we're kind of understanding a little bit more that oxalates are not the issue because they come in many very high antioxidant foods, which is what a lot of these compounds are coming in. So we find oxalates pretty high in things like cacao. We also find them high in spinach and kale and nuts and seeds and coffee. And so
Teas.
yeah, teas, potatoes even are a source of oxalates. So people are just saying, let me cut out 45 different foods, then I'll be okay. Until they then realize, wait, having a fungal overgrowth untreated in my gut, not having certain bacterial strains to help me leads to other issues as well. So cutting out the oxalates is really often just a start. Then they might segue into other things like, hey, because these other things are being untreated, this fungal overgrowth, this low bacterial balance, now I have histamine intolerance. Because again, if you're already to that point, you probably have a more hyperpermeable gut barrier than you should. So now they're developing a histamine intolerance. Okay, on top of oxalates, let me cut out histamines as well.
Mhm.
Sure, you can, but why do you have a histamine intolerance? What is going on with the lining of your small intestine, with your liver, with your kidneys, other areas of your body that are supposed to make these enzymes that break down histamine versus just saying cut, 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 cut forever. And now I'm eating 3 different foods and I'm miserable.
So it sounds like to put this all simply, you have two options. You can kick the can down the road and going, maybe you start with some bloating and gas, like we started with today. Why are you bloated and bloating and gas? And you start to figure out FODMAPs and you cut out FODMAPs, and then you realize, oh, there's something called oxalates, and you go on a low oxalate and you start to cut, and you're really just kicking the can down the road. And you may find some benefit, like, we're seeing this video of like lipedema, or like even edema, even cholesterol levels, or even whatever.
Which at their root are all inflammatory
They're all
conditions. So
inflammatory,
it's
right? Gut problems. My bloating, my gas went away, and so you're kicking this can and going, I'm just going to keep eliminate, kick the can down the road, treat my symptoms. You
But
can
then
do that.
if the root of the inflammation is still there,
Well, that's what I want to get to. There's that choice,
that's
or
gonna
there's
pop up anyway.
following the symptoms to the root, which is the opposite direction, right? It's like going out of the house and kicking the can down the road. It's going in the house and going, what's wrong with my house? What's going on inside? And digging deep and realizing, oh, there's something going on here. Let me dig deeper. And you start to ask more of the why questions. Why am I bloated and gassy? It's not just that I'm just bloated and gassy. There's a reason. And if you're finding, oh, it's when I eat beans or when I eat greens, well, why is it when I eat beans and greens? What is it about the beans and greens that make me gassy, right? I just finished a bout of antibiotics. Oh, my mom also felt this way, or my dad felt this way, or all my siblings feel this way, or my cousins and my aunts have lupus, and there's autoimmune disease that runs in my. And so you start to dig at these layers instead of kicking the can. So those are really the two options there. We are telling you to do the former, right? The dig deeper, take the integrative approach, go into the whys instead of the excuses, or like, again, kicking the can down the road, and dig deeper into what is really going on. And when you do that, it's just as much work, I would say, but there's a better reward. There's a better ROI long term. It's more sustainable. Again, it can be very hard work. We're not saying this is easy. There's no magic pill, even though there's some out there that will try to sell you lectin pills. And for those of you that don't know, Dahlia was our first patient. She struggled with SIBO and IBS and so many GI problems on a day-to-day basis, hunched over, causing so many other issues. We wish we had a protocol in place, a program in place that led her through step by step, inch by inch, and really guide by guide, so she had everything at her fingertips. Now we have that. That is our Good Gut SIBO IBS program. You can do it 100% plant-based. You can customize it, but it is one of the only programs that is geared towards plants, that can help you customize plants, that can help you tolerate more plants, and really gets to the root of your SIBO, of your IBS, of your ISO, SIFO, IMO, and any other type of overgrowth. And we're seeing comments here. So many people from, what is that, Tomville 1-2, so many people just want a quick fix. Yeah, and the Urban Pharmacy, like Jordan Peterson saying, carnivore solves literally everything. LOL. And that's where, well, because you've completely eliminated everything. So it's like you've been playing this game and you're getting frustrated. And you just swished everything off the board. There, the game's done. It's like, well, no, you look like a poor sport, and you just destroyed the game. You're not. There's many other problems you just created, right?
Or it's almost like, okay, you have a damaged pipe, so just stick some tape on it. It fixed the leak. Whereas we know over time it will continue to build more and more pressure, and you'll have a whole,
More problems.
huge leak, slab leak eventually. So it's again, where are you in that spectrum? Are you looking for that quick fix to immediately get rid of your symptoms because you have a deadline and you need to feel good for that? And who cares what's happening to my gut long term? Or are you looking for a long term solution? So we know a lot of these high antioxidant foods are correlated with longevity and lowering levels of inflammation. They are antioxidant rich. So when you're continuing to cut out these antioxidant rich, high antioxidant, low inflammatory foods, what is the long-term risk? Again, you want to weigh benefits and risks before you include these interventions. So whether it's with oxalates or also, I know, somebody was asking about salicylates. We had a question on, can you speak on salicylate? People are going crazy avoiding those as well. So again, we're having more people talk about these things. And so now people are saying, avoid salicylates, which are another group of chemicals. So salicylic acid, its derivatives, these are under that umbrella of salicylates. So these are present in many fruits, vegetables, herbs, whole grains, spices, even certain medications like aspirin is high in salicylate. And we do know that they do have anti-inflammatory and pain-relieving properties, but you need to have a healthy liver in order to break down salicylates. They get absorbed in the small intestine, then they're sent to the liver. The liver's supposed to break down the salicylic acid and the salicylate properties, break it down, throw it back into the gut to then get rid of it.
Well,
So
thank God most Americans have a healthy liver.
exactly.
It's like choking on. I'm so funny. I make
choking,
Dahlia
yes.
choke.
And so, how prevalent
Thank
is
God.
fatty liver and
Not prevalent at all.
non-alcoholic fatty liver disease? And they renamed it. I think it's called MAFLD, which I don't remember. Metabolic associated fatty liver disease. So it's no longer called non-alcoholic fatty liver
I guess
disease. It's
that makes sense.
metabolic associated fatty liver disease. So I think, we think of these things as, oh, that's just affecting people who have, metabolic syndrome. They have a large waist circumference. They have metabolic disease. Not necessarily.
Yeah.
We have people who have perfectly balanced BMIs and low body fat percentages who still can have not fatty liver disease. They still can have these, metabolic related dysfunctions because of past habits. I know
The
we've
proper term is
spoken.
called skinny fat.
It's
No, I'm
called
just kidding.
TOFI. No, actually, it is
I know.
thin outside fat inside. TOFI is a medical
TOFI.
term.
It is, yeah.
I don't agree with it, but yeah, the liver really is key. So then when you have a salicylate intolerance, it's asking that, what's the state of my liver? What's the health of my liver? And honestly, because the liver is such an in-demand, busy organ, it's going to take time for it to recover.
Everything goes through the liver.
Everything goes through the liver. So it's hard for the liver to repair itself because it's constantly working. It's almost like shutting down a machine that's critical to the factory. Like, you will cause chaos and wreak havoc. So the machine can't just shut down and get repaired like the liver. It takes years to reverse fatty liver and liver disease. And now we're seeing even just more people at a younger age have irreversible liver disease. I do have a lot of patients in their 20s, 30s, maybe even 40s who have steatosis, or actual hardening of the liver that is not reversible. The fat has accumulated in the liver for such a long time with so much inflammation, it's hardened, and now it's affecting the liver tissue, which will affect liver function. So absolutely, that person might struggle with salicylates.
So MAFLD, metabolic associated fatty liver disease. Yes, that's right. I think when did they change it? Like in 2000, maybe 18 or 19?
No, it's just in last year.
Or recently, last year or two? Okay. So it's asking, so again, those two options. Is it going, you not knowing you have maybe, and again, there was a recent study that came out that said only 18% of the American population is metabolically healthy, and that has to do with your liver, and this is being optimal when it comes to your metabolic health. And so then when you're looking at 82%, which is a majority of people out there.
Did they update it from the 12%?
Oh, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe they did. Yeah. So yes, so it might be, so let's just say 12 to 18%. right? So
Okay.
let's say that. So because yeah, don't if I'm remembering correctly, but let's just say a majority that don't have like have a suboptimal metabolic health, which
Hmm.
we see it in our family with diabetes and I mean everyone knows either not just one but a handful of people with cardiovascular disease, diabetes, so these metabolic conditions. And so again, going back to these two choices, you have a choice to say, I'm experiencing these maybe GI symptoms now. Do I just blame the food and then these influencers are telling me eat more steak and bacon and cheese, or
And is that conducive to your liver health?
right, or but that's why what's easier? Uh or do I have to dig deep and ask questions of my family, look at my health, look at my mental,
My
physical,
past
emotional
history.
health, past history, my liver health, make changes and understand why? Which option's easier? And like some were commenting, the quick fix is, well, yeah, I'd rather just eat more sticks of butter and cheese and meat, which I'm already doing, and just go all in on that and not have to dive deeper and ask these questions, right? And
Hmm.
so you get that immediate gratification of I'm eating the foods I already love to eat. I'm not having to dig deeper. I am seeing some benefit to this where my GI problems go away. You may lose some weight because you cut out the bread and pasta and sugar and ultra processed foods you were likely eating along with the high animal products. And then you get to say, look, it's so much better. But what happens in a year, in 2 years, in 5 years, the data is not good on that. And that's why what Dolly mentioned across the board, epidemiological studies, clinical trials, and so many just really good studies that are even still ongoing when it comes to population studies show eating plants is the key to longevity, right? So it's a diet that says plants are bad, oxalates are bad, salicylates are bad, which these are all components of plants, is not in alignment with what we're seeing, right? It's not in alignment whether you go anecdotally with us and going, we've been eating plants and adding more plants and improving our gut health. Dolly's been improving her autoimmune disease and gut health and
My liver
hormones
health.
and liver health. Okay, there's an anecdote, but then also we have all this amazing high quality research to back that up as well. And there's a huge majority of the population who's still going, plants are amazing and it's helping our health. So again, there are these kind of two sides and two paths, and it's understanding those a little bit better. And
Hmm.
the liver is just one of those keys where we're not
Yeah.
asking these questions. I don't know of any carnivore people or really people pushing this, whether you want to call them carnivore or like the oxalate,
Extreme elimination
antioxalates
diet.
people are asking about, well, what about the ancillary organs that help with your gut? Are they being supported and helped with this? So
Hmm.
yes, a lot there. And just to say something we're working on in the background, I'm excited to work on something where it brings all this together. And we're in the early phases of this, but like there's so much out there, and there seems to be these sides, and it's back and forth, and it's fighting back and forth. But really, if we focus on one thing, I think we can all come together eventually and have a better understanding of this. And that is something we're definitely working on, and something that's very, very important. So yes, a lot there. But
Hmm.
well, I want to see. Is there? I want to maybe look at some comments,
And
or were you going to add anything?
no, I mean, I feel like just going back to the essence of the topic, right?
Yes, that's what I was going to do before.
Do you feel bloated after eating greens? So we named a few reasons why. It
Yes.
could be maybe a fungal overgrowth, and you're not breaking down the oxalates, right?
Mm,
We do know also it could be salicylates because greens are high in salicylates. We do know also certain greens can be higher in histamine. So
yes.
spinach and arugula, for example, any of those greens that go gooey more quickly, right? Where you're like, oh man, I was going to eat that spinach and now it's slimy. I can't eat it anymore. It's,
Shout out Trader Joe's bags.
yeah, exactly. Where you're like, I had it for 3 days and then that was it.
Like what? It was good in the store. Now it's slimy.
Exactly. So those could be higher in histamine. But again, it's why isn't my gut breaking down the histamine? Same with FODMAPs, right? If I'm noticing certain foods are more fermentable because they have fermentable carbohydrates, which can include some greens, why am I not tolerating FODMAPs? So it's always great. Sure, if you need an elimination diet, make sure that it's short term. We do know persistent elimination diets that are lasting longer than 6 to 8 weeks can and will damage your gut overall in the long run. And it can take time to then recoup that bacteria that you lost from them. So, really have a plan of how long am I eliminating this? What is the root of what I have going on? How am I supporting that root? If it's your liver, work on supporting the health of your liver, which will need to include more antioxidants. If it is your gut lining, then work on your gut lining. If it's bacterial imbalance, work on your bacterial balance. If it's your motility, work on your motility. So that way you are eating these things that are conducive to decreasing inflammation, decreasing risk for cancer, decreasing risk for chronic preventable diseases, and then just overall extending your longevity. Because what's the point of having a six pack if you feel terrible and you're going to have a short lifespan, right? I don't think many people have that goal. I think some do for certain, where they're like, I don't care, YOLO. I'd rather look good and feel like crap and not live as long than thrive for a longer time. But if that's your goal, which hopefully that's why you're here with us, you want to heal with each meal, it's so important to ask these questions and ask your practitioners as well. Because I know a lot of really well meaning practitioners who maybe aren't as well versed in the gut microbiome, in relationship with food, in sustainability, will suggest these extreme elimination diets and really not give that wisdom with how long they should be followed, what the end goal of these elimination diets are. So it's so important to really ask your practitioner who's suggesting these things, tell me the reason and the science behind it. Because if they're like fumbling over their words, they can't even explain to you the science behind it. They probably watched it on a TikTok video themselves. So
you calling them out.
yeah, I am. So ask what's the science behind it? Why are you recommending that I avoid oxalates, histamine, salicylates, FODMAPs, whatever it is? If they can't explain the science to you, ask somebody else who can. If your practitioner has no timeline and no goals on it, ask what those should be, and then ask if there are alternatives, what they do want you to eat in that meantime. Because then if they're like, yeah, just eat pure animal protein and white rice, not sustainable, right? So is it, sensible? Is it sustainable? Does it fit into your lifestyle? If the answer is no, keep looking. Somebody's asking, can you repeat the 3 problems? Motility, fungal overgrowth, what else? So generally when we're talking about gut health, we're looking at the balance of bugs. So making sure you have the right balance of whether it's bacteria,
Population.
fungi, archaea, the right mix of population. So it's a balance of bugs, it's the barrier, and then it's the flow of the bugs, which is motility as well. So you really want those things to be on point in order to have a thriving gut. And then thriving gut supporting organs as well, because other organs are functioning based off how well the gut is functioning, like your pancreas, your liver, your gallbladder. So if your gut's not optimized, it's going to affect all of those things, your endocrine system, your cardiovascular system. So really focus on those 3 main things: the balance of bugs, the flow of the bugs, the home or the barrier of the bugs. Somebody saying Fiberfield mentions a salicylate test that can be administered in a doctor's office as well as at home. Are you familiar with this? I am not.
We're usually, I mean,
okay. So it can be measured in the blood or the urine. So this test can help diagnose aspirin poisoning or monitor people taking aspirin for arthritis
well, it
mainly,
wasn't salicylate.
but it can.
She's a disregard. It wasn't salicylate. So yeah.
But there is, you can measure salicylate in the
there's
blood or urine.
Blood or urine testing.
And then, there's certainly testing for all these things. You can test for histamine levels. A lot of the times you can test for urinary oxalates. If you have had a stone, I always recommend asking them to tell you what type of stone you had. So that way you know what caused the stones. And 9 times out of 10, my patients with kidney stones have fungal overgrowth because it's a calcium oxalate stone. So always ask your practitioners for more information, more testing. Can you test me for these things? How long should I be doing these things? What's the science behind this diet? And then you'll have that long-term better gut health and a better relationship with food.
Yes. And so And so you may find yourself with going, okay, I'm having these problems. Let's say GI problems, but maybe there's underlying metabolic problems you're not aware of. And you go to a great doctor and they say, yes, you need to eat more plants. You're on the right track. Like that's great. And then you start to eat more plants and you find these plants are making your symptoms worse, right? And you start to go, why? And so still on the right track, the doctor goes, oh, well, it takes time. You got to get used to it. Or maybe it's a dietitian, doctor, or a team. It takes time to get used to it. Being integrative gut health registered dietitians for over a decade, we really wanted something. We wanted to formulate something that we didn't have when Dahlia was going through IBS and SIBO symptoms, gas, bloating, constipation, diarrhea, hunched over after every meal. That's why we formulated Gut Nurture. It was a mix of ingredients that we wish we had to pull from all kinds of different supplements in order to make a supplement that actually works, that helped with motility, that helped lay the foundation to build a healthy gut microbiome. It's safe for kids, it's safe for women, men. It's safe if you have IBS, if you're low FODMAP, low histamine, low sulfur, the list goes on and on. We really made it a ubiquitous, amazing supplement to help your gut thrive, and it is something we wish we had over a decade ago that you have now. Try Gut Nurture, let us know what you think, and be one of the thousands and thousands using Gut Nurture to stay healthy daily. The next phase of this is diving deeper, and what Dahlia and really our team has done is even dive deeper into those questions of like, it's you understand the why and maybe you have a great care team, but it's getting into the how, the nitty gritty, like Dahlia was explaining and mentioning, of salicylates and oxalates and histamine and and FODMAPs and sulfur and higher sulfur foods versus lower sulfur foods. That's really getting into the nitty gritty, but this follows that pathway of diving deeper. This follows the pathway of food and lifestyle. These are just, unfortunately, just more details. And I say unfortunately because it can take time, and it does take finding the right practitioner to help you with this and dive deeper. But we're still on that track of using lifestyle, of using nutrition, of using food. And that's why registered dietitians are educated in medical nutrition therapy, but not all registered dietitians can dive deep like this and really have specialized in understanding the intricacies of food, and are able to dive deep and understand the context of going, you're not properly breaking down oxalates, you're not properly breaking down histamines, you're not properly breaking down salicylates, and here's why. And here are some other factors, medications and supplements or past issues you've had that are contributing to those factors. It's much easier to just say eliminate, eat steak, chicken and fish and butter, and you're going to be okay. And it's like, oh, I'm not going to be okay because this isn't sustainable, right? And there's many going down, I would say, the better path that you can still, if you want to keep in high quality animal products, you can still customize it and do that. This isn't like a end all be all, you have to be 100% plant based. That's not what we're saying as well. And especially if you've been suffering with chronic and severe GI issues for a very long time, we find those people it's very hard for them to switch over and go, I'm going to 100% plant based overnight. And that's usually when they have this explosion of symptoms. It doesn't go well. And then more publicly, you see these people make videos online of like, I tried to go plant based, or I was trying to go vegan and this happened to me and it was horrible. And then the carnivore community kind of feeds off that and goes, see, plants are bad, they're toxic, they're hurting you, and they're missing the context of this was a person suffering with severe gut issues. They tried to do it very quick and it backfired a bit without diving deeper and understanding and again digging to the roots. So this is so important. I think we're going to say this as many times as we need to and make as many videos and podcasts as we need to, so people just get this, and hopefully you can understand this and share this with any friends or family who are struggling with this, because again, demonizing food and kind of driving yourself a little crazy with demonizing the food and picking apart the food and going, I just need to eliminate, and oh, arugula is bad, and oh, cabbages are bad, and nightshades are bad, that whole category of food is bad. That's not really going to get you anywhere sustainable anytime quick, right? It's going to get you somewhere quick of maybe some symptoms are relieved, but in the long term, it's really not going to be somewhere you stay. And there's issue. We see many patients who have been on elimination diets, AIP diets. We did a whole episode on that. If you search and Married to Health on our YouTube or in our podcast on the AIP diet, there's some good with it, but the context is there where it is not a long-term sustainable solution. And again, we find patients that come to us and have been on an elimination diet of some shape or form for 3 years, 6 years, 12 years, and it can go up from there. And that is not ideal. I will just flat out say it's not good. You don't want to do that, right? So it's very important you don't do that. And that's essentially what keto, carnivore, or whatever you want to call it. What is the other one? Ancestral. They're essentially just long-term elimination diets. And instead of coming to the conclusion and realization and being humble and going, this isn't working, they're going, no, we're going to make it. They're like doubling down. We're going to make it a lifestyle. It's just like the plant-based diet. We're going to make it a lifestyle. This is animal-based. And we're seeing it unravel. If you've been following it closely, we're seeing those who are really pushing it. It's unraveling slowly but surely. And because it's just not a sustainable long-term diet. So for so many reasons, like Dahlia mentioned, we're mentioning today. And so again, to kind of bring it back, I think, like we mentioned, those are the reasons why you're bloated with eating greens. If you are finding yourself bloated with eating greens and really just anything green, that's including broccoli and Brussels sprouts and green cabbage and anything green, okra, then seek that other path of asking why. What is in the food, or what are components of this food that is causing me to feel bloated, causing me to experience GI pain, and understand why that is. And you may take a break from some of these foods, but you're working with someone that understands that it's a very short time, because they're understanding your why, and they're going to bring these foods back in. And the goal is to add more of these green foods over time. It's not to escape from them, eliminate them, or avoid them over time. That is not anywhere near or part of the long-term goal with this. So hopefully this context of oxalates and histamines and your liver health, and again, it goes to your gallbladder health. And again, many of you, if you are missing a gallbladder, it makes a lot of this even more difficult, but not impossible. And so you're understanding this context of going, oh, that's why when I eat some of these foods, I'm not feeling well. It's not the foods, right? There's no gassy foods or bloated foods. There's gassy people and bloated people. And it's understanding the health story of those people. It's diving deep into the person and understanding the why, so that we can better incorporate and add this diversity of foods.
And that's not fun, sexy, or fast, unfortunately, which is why these cut out these really bad things and you'll feel better immediately videos get hundreds of thousands of views. And then, when we're trying to provide voice of reason, it's like, that's boring. I don't want that, which is fine. But we're not gonna participate in sensationalizing things that just aren't good for people in the long run. I always say, discipline is love, and this is another form of discipline, right? Of just kind of like buckling down, going through the discomfort of whatever, the testing, the thorough research, your relationship with food, and really understanding at its roots. Is that why these greens are bothering me versus they're bothering me today? Let me just cut them out forever, because it's not going to support your long-term healing. So let us know your experiences with any of these things, whether greens have been something that have disrupted your gut. Maybe they're the sulfury greens and cause sulfury gas. If they are histamine, oxalate, salicylate, whatever it is, FODMAP rich greens, and if there is something that's played into it. So we'll answer a couple questions.
And so, yes, so for those watching live, you're putting questions in the comments. Great. Here's a question. I have been constipated for the last few years. Even on days I eat lots of veggies, fruits, and fish, I still am constipated the next day. I'm not sure how to figure out what's making me constipated. So low-hanging fruit. And this is what you hear a lot of, is liquid and hydration.
Yes.
It's how how thoroughly and well are you chewing. It's mindful eating. It's sleeping. So those foundational levels, if you find like, like this woman was saying, I'm eating my veggies and my fruits, and maybe I'm sleeping and moving and hydrated, I'm doing everything right. I'm seeing this as a woman. Have you had children? So there's one avenue to go down, or I don't know if you want
pelvic floor.
pelvic
How
floor.
are those muscles working? I'm seeing in a lot of Americans magnesium deficiency. So, are you getting in enough magnesium? Are you having enough of a balance of hydrating fiber in your diet, soluble fiber? And then, next question is, how's your nerve function and how's your bacterial balance? Do you have overabundance of these microbes, these methane producing microbes that can constipate you? So if you're noticing, not only am I constipated, I'm very bloated, my gas and stool smell like a cow petting zoo outhouse. Maybe you have an overabundance of these methane producing microbes. So we would then try to work on your motility and try to balance out your hydration intake and your fiber intake and try to figure out if there's anything else impeding your motility time.
And very quickly, just and Dell, you can add to this if you want, but like gases we produce in our colon inside of our bodies, if left there too long, they can damage the nerves around them. They create inflammation, right? It's just like holding your breath. Or if you've ever been at a gas station, you wouldn't want to be putting gas in an enclosed space and just smelling all those fumes. There are fumes in our body. We are a biological being. We produce biochemical byproducts, and we need to eliminate them quickly. If we can't, for whatever reason, they can linger. They cause inflammation. They can cause nerve damage that further contributes to constipation. Maybe you've been constipated and not knowing it for a long time. And so now when you're like, oh, let me eat more fiber, you're even adding to the constipation. So sometimes eating more plants initially can add to the slow motility because you're just adding more. It's like a factory that's backed up because a worker called out sick or there was an accident, and you keep adding more to the conveyor belt thinking, oh, I'm just going to add more. It's going to push it on through. Well, no, that you have to figure out what is the exact issue. Is it mechanical? Is it a personnel? Is it right? And that goes back to the structure, function, population. Which issue? Is it a little bit of all three? Is it one major part of those three? And what is it? That way you can, again, understand the why. And then you're adding the fruits and the veggies and the nuts and seeds and beans and feeling good and things are moving because we understand the why. So there can be lots of reasons why with constipation. So it's good to understand that for sure. I think this is the same person. Yes. Would you say it's good to cut out alcohol and soda? I mean, overall, yes. And we're going to touch on the alcohol topic in the very near future because alcohol is a byproduct of fermentation. However, just like sugar, it's for those people who say sugar's bad. Well, no, sugar in an apple is fine. Sugar in pineapple and watermelon, those are all great. However, when we hyper process the sugar, we've now removed all the, let's say, safety nets and everything that made the sugar safe, which was the fiber and the pectin and the antioxidants and all these wonderful parts of the watermelon, let's say. We've removed that. That is essentially what distillation is. That is essentially what alcohol is. A healthy fermented beverage can be great, and it might contain some alcohol. When you distill and you can triple distill, right, to really get the highest concentration of alcohol, and you're taking a shot, very different story. That is detrimental to the gut. So if you're doing these really concentrated forms of alcohol like shots, think of vodka, absinthe, those forms of alcohol, or even mixed drinks, where now you're getting, if you think about a mixed drink, it's the worst of two worlds, right? You're getting hyper refined sugar and hyper refined alcohol. You're mixing them together and drinking it, and that is a wreck to your gut for sure. So with soda, hyper refined sugar; alcohol, hyper refined alcohol, which is still a carbohydrate, and boom, you're getting this bomb to your gut. Yes. So it is good to cut out alcohol and soda in that case for sure. Okay. Good questions. And we answered those earlier questions. And what's up, everybody who is from Kick? And all right, I love it. So yeah, we're answering these questions along the way. It is great. Thank you all so much. Hopefully this helped, and it's just another piece of this ongoing conversation of really understanding plant foods, understanding the benefit of plant foods, understanding, the context of plant foods, which is very important to your gut health. We have been around, I think, enough time to say plants are really the key to healing your gut. I know a lot of people don't like to say this. We get a lot of flack online when we post about fiber being the essential carbohydrate. We get a lot of carnivore keto people in our comments, but it is, I mean, when looking at the research, we've done in-depth lectures privately and publicly on this. We've looked at the research for over a decade. We've lived it. We've applied it to our patients. We're going to be doing even more research personally in our practice on it to just showcase it more. So we're really excited about that. And we feel the gut is the nexus of all health, and plants are key to helping your gut microbiome truly thrive. So we love it. Thank you all so much.
With, yes, oxalates, salicylates, histamines,
Those are all part of it.
FODMAPs, sulfur, we definitely know that you can heal with each meal. You just sometimes need the right input, the right guidance, could be the right test, the right supplement, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But if you're confused, there are experts who aren't. So seek out that help.
If you want those experts, go to marriedhealth.com. If depending where you're watching this, click down below. There will be a link of a gut health action assessment. So this is just something free we put together where you can answer questions and see, well, what the heck's going on with me? I'm confused. I don't know what to do. So we put together that free assessment, or go to marriedhealth.com and just plug in with more resources we have for you. But thank you all so much for listening. Until next time,
Heal with each meal.
talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye.